Hey, and welcome to the channel. My name is Curtis. This is 7 Tech. We got a basically brand new computer here, just built a couple weeks ago, and the owner says he's having problems with it. He said for about a week it played good, and now he's getting all kinds of stuttering and FPS problems. He said it was unplayable. He's got a AMD 7600X CPU, Radeon 7800 XT graphics card, SKIL 32 gigs of RAM. So it's a pretty decent computer. He shouldn't be having any kind of problems. So we're fixing to boot it up, launch a game, and see if we can duplicate the problems he's having and try and figure it out. So here we are, first boot at the desktop. And the first thing I see is Norton. This is trash, a resource hog. Get rid of it. Windows Defender is more than capable of protecting your PC. And just don't do dumb stuff. Don't go to sketchy sites, don't download something from untrusted places, and you'll be good. This is garbage. I reached out to the owner just now and asked him if he installed this and does he want it, and he said he has no idea how it got on there. So we're gonna install this, but before I do anything, we're gonna play a game and see if we can duplicate the problem. I just wanted to point that out, that this is starting up at startup with the PC, and get rid of it. Now I'm just gonna minimize this. I'm gonna leave everything running just like it would if the owner had it, and load up Call of Duty. So we're in the menu and the CPU is already hitting 78 degrees. That doesn't seem right to me. GPU is sitting good. The CPU is 73 right now. I'm not seeing what he's telling me about. I had 2 stutters and it was toward the initial load in of the game. I've been playing for probably, I don't know, 5 minutes. It's playing fine. Yeah, that was smooth play. I had 2 stutters right at the beginning of the game load in. That was probably just up to loading in. I did notice it's running about 115 frames per second, and he has a 1440p monitor. I have a 1080. So he's probably getting a little lower frames than 115. So maybe there's something with that.
Hey, Curtis from the future here. So I never really did experience the problems that the owner told me about, such as the stuttering and the low frame rates. And I believe that may be because I didn't play long enough and allow the PC to get up to temperature. And I say that because, as you'll see here in a minute, I found a cooling problem with this PC.
Well, I didn't think I was going to be able to make a video with this computer because I couldn't really pinpoint a problem. I was suspecting maybe a driver error or something wrong with Windows. So I moved on to getting ready to format Windows and reinstall it. And I went into the BIOS to change the boot order, and that's when I noticed that the CPU temperature just idling in the BIOS was sitting around 65 to 68 degrees, which is too high for idling in the BIOS. I didn't film it because I still had that mindset that it's a driver issue or Windows problem. But what I did was I pulled the CPU heatsink off, and I found that there's 2 kind of semicircle brackets that mount to the motherboard backplate. They're held on with 2 screws. Those screws were loose, and then the cooler itself sits on top of those semicircle brackets with 2 screws in each one, and those screws were loose. I took the CPU cooler off, and when I did, there was still a pretty thick layer of thermal paste on the CPU. Like it had not been squished down enough. So that was another way I could tell that it wasn't tight enough. There was just too much thermal paste still on the CPU and not enough squish out. So I tightened up all the brackets, reapplied thermal paste, screwed the heatsink down nice and tight. You can't be afraid to kind of really tighten that. You know, you don't want to just keep going until it breaks, but you want to get your CPU cooler pretty tight on your CPU. So I did that, and now we're sitting at CPU temp 43 degrees in the BIOS idling. Now here we are back in Call of Duty. Even after I fixed the CPU cooler and got it mounted correctly and tight and dropped the CPU temps, I was still not getting good FPS in Call of Duty. So I still think maybe there was a driver or Windows issue. So I went ahead and reinstalled Windows. And now we're sitting at, I would say, about an average of 140 FPS. Whereas before, it was, I think, around 95 to 105. And I didn't see it, but the owner was saying he was also getting stuttering some. But now it's 140, 139, 145, 160, and I'm dead. But anyway, so it was a CPU cooler not mounted tight enough. And as well, I really believe it was some kind of problem in Windows, a driver problem, Windows corrupted or something, because even after fixing the CPU, it was still not getting good FPS. But after a CPU mount and a reinstall in Windows, we're sitting about 140 FPS. So I think we call this a fix, and I can get it back to the owner. There were a few other things that I did to the computer. He had all 6 of his case fans running off of one motherboard header. And I've heard that that's not good to pull that many fans on one motherboard header. And he actually has 4 fan headers on this motherboard. So I spread them around to get the load off of just that one motherboard header. He also had his top fans here blowing down, and his only exhaust was this rear fan. So I went ahead and flipped these 3 over. Yes, he does have more exhaust than intake, but I tweaked the fan curves of these exhausts in the rear to not blow as hard as the intake. So the intake is always blowing harder than the exhaust. So as they ramp up, the exhaust never blows as much as the intake. That way, try to keep some positive pressure in the case rather than a negative pressure. So to recap, I believe it was a compound problem. The CPU heatsink was not mounted tight enough, and therefore it was getting some temperature swings. I had suspected the CPU kind of from the beginning because I just was seeing those temperature swings in the CPU. It'd go 78, 80, and then drop down to 60, and then 75, 62, and just, it was kind of swinging as if it was trying to boost, getting too hot, and then having to throttle back down. That's my theory anyway. And then the second part, I believe there was still something wrong with Windows or a driver or something. I know the owner, he tried installing a bunch of different things and tweaking stuff, trying to figure out what the problem was. So maybe he messed up something there. Anyways, sorry I didn't get all that on film. Again, I was in that mindset of thinking it was a Windows and driver problem and not that heat sink. And once I put it back on and saw the temperature drop, I said, darn, I should have filmed that. It wasn't much to see. It's just 2 screws hold the heat sink onto the brackets, and then 4 screws that hold the brackets onto the motherboard backplate. So I just tightened all those down, put some new thermal paste, put it back on. Temperatures dropped about 20 degrees just idling in the BIOS. So I believe we can call this a fix and get it back to the owner. If you really like this video, please check out some of my other videos, and like and subscribe really help my channel out. Also, if you live near the Alabama-Mississippi state line down near the Gulf Coast and you have a PC you'd like to have built or need one repaired, reach out to me and see if I can help you out. My name is Curtis. Again, thanks for watching 7Tech. And now he's getting the bot. Freya, get down. Here we go, first boot. Or turn the power supply on first. My name's Curtis. Thanks for watching 7Tech. Nope. Again, thanks for watching. My name's Curtis. My name is Curtis. Again, thanks for watching 7Tech.